In the summer of 1867, far from the busy towns of Missouri, a quiet farming settlement outside Sedalia became the backdrop for one of the most unsettling cases ever recorded in the Midwest. At the center of it was an 8-year-old boy named Timothy Caldwell. In the months after his arrival, accidents began to unfold. 3 lives were lost under unusual circumstances, and livestock across neighboring farms turned up dead in ways that defied reason. 11 people in total would cross paths with Timothy before tragedy touched them. What remained of the official records was quietly sealed away for more than a century, but the fragments that survive suggest a disturbing truth: that Timothy Caldwell represented a darkness no one wanted to admit could dwell in a child. The story begins not with violence, but with grief. Missouri in 1867 was still scarred from the Civil War. Communities were broken, homes were empty, and families were learning to live with loss. The Caldwell homestead, tucked into a valley 15 miles south of Sedalia, had once been prosperous. James Caldwell dreamed of raising cattle and corn, but those dreams died with him on the battlefield in 1861. His widow, Martha, held on until illness took her 4 years later. Thomas's wife, Sarah, had grown sharp-edged in her childless years. She was not a woman who softened easily to children, and when Timothy arrived in the spring of 1866, thin, pale, and carrying only a cloth bag, there was little warmth waiting for him. The boy was small for his age, his skin fair and quick to burn beneath the Missouri sun. His blonde hair Sarah kept cropped short to keep lice at bay. He rarely spoke of his past, offering only fragments: a father lost to war, a mother who wasted away coughing blood, a time spent with neighbors before being sent here. What unsettled people most, however, was his demeanor. Timothy was polite, almost unnervingly so. He never argued, never complained, and answered every elder with a quiet "yes, sir," or "yes, ma'am." To some he seemed the picture of discipline. To others there was something unnatural about a child so free of play, so absent of laughter. Dr. Harding first met Timothy in June of 1866 when the boy accompanied his uncle into town. A veteran physician, Harding had treated both Union and Confederate soldiers, and in doing so had developed an uncanny sense for reading people. At first glance, Timothy did nothing wrong. He spoke respectfully, looked Harding in the eye, and displayed none of the awkward fidgeting typical of rural children meeting strangers. And yet, Harding admitted later in his journals, he felt a deep unease. It was as though the boy were studying him, dissecting him with the same careful curiosity Harding himself used on patients. Neighbors soon began noticing their own small oddities. Eleanor Patterson, who lived on the adjoining farm, often remarked how Timothy worked the fields from sunrise to sunset without pause. She told her husband it was like watching a machine, not a child. Their chickens, too, grew restless whenever Timothy walked near the property line, squawking and huddling as if sensing something that humans could not. In August of 1866, little Mary Fletcher, a 5-year-old known for her laughter, was found face down in a shallow creek. It was Timothy who brought the news, his clothes damp, his voice steady despite the distress on his pale face. The community mourned the child as a victim of misfortune. Only Dr. Harding found reason to question the story. Timothy's account of discovering Mary was far too detailed for a frightened child, down to the way her dress snagged on a branch and the color of the water around her face. Weeks later, another tragedy. An old logger named Henrik Larsson, familiar with every stone of Devil's Bluff, was found dead at its base. Again, it was Timothy who noticed something amiss: a hat caught on a thorn, a body lying broken beneath the cliff. Harding examined the scene and found nothing conclusive, yet he could not shake the strange detail of the bees clustered around the corpse. By September, tragedy struck a third time. 6-year-old Jacob Mills vanished near his home. For days the town searched, and Timothy tirelessly joined them. Guiding grown men through woods, he seemed to know better than anyone. On the fourth day, he announced he had found the boy. Jacob lay at the bottom of a hidden well, alive but too weak to survive. Hours later, the child was dead. And while the family wept, Dr. Harding quietly watched Timothy. The boy sat in a corner, lips moving in what looked like prayer. But his eyes told a different story. They were not grieving. They were observing, studying the boy's last breaths as though cataloging every detail. It was then Harding began to suspect the unthinkable. Dr. Harding soon realized that Timothy's questions about medicine carried a darker edge. "I need to know how to treat emergencies since we live so far from town," the boy explained politely. The reasoning sounded harmless, yet something about the way Timothy asked unsettled the physician. This was not childish curiosity, it was cold, clinical. Timothy wanted to know the mechanics of dying, how long it took, what signs marked the final moments, and whether people could survive certain injuries. He listened with the detachment of a medical student studying cadavers, not a child barely 8 years old. To test him, Dr. Harding began slipping false information into their conversations. He would claim a wound was always fatal when he knew it was not, or suggest that a certain illness had specific symptoms that didn't match reality. Timothy never corrected him, but Harding could see it in the boy's eyes. He was cataloging every word, storing it with astonishing precision. What disturbed Harding most was Timothy's response to his war stories. When the doctor described amputations, mangled soldiers, and men clinging to life on blood-soaked fields, most children recoiled in horror. Timothy leaned forward, fascinated, his pale blue eyes fixed on the doctor's face. "Did they scream when you cut off their arms?" Timothy asked quietly one afternoon. "Or were they too hurt to make noise?" The question, delivered in Timothy's polite, almost gentle voice, chilled Dr. Harding to his core. By November 1866, the doctor's journals were nearly filled with notes on the boy. The portrait that emerged was unmistakable, a child with an adult's grasp of violence and death, yet utterly void of empathy. But observations weren't evidence, and Harding knew he needed proof before warning the community. That proof arrived when Thomas Caldwell injured his back during the harvest. The daily medical visits gave Harding access to the household, and with it more time to probe Timothy's mind. What he uncovered confirmed his worst fears. Through careful questioning and observation, Harding learned Timothy had been experimenting on living creatures for months, perhaps years. The boy described a cave where he liked to be alone. When Harding investigated, he found a gruesome laboratory, piles of animal bones arranged neatly, crude surgical tools fashioned from farm equipment, and most horrifying of all, drawings. The sketches were shockingly detailed, far beyond a child's innocent doodles. Rabbits, squirrels, birds, even larger animals were shown in stages of dissection. accompanied by precise notes in Timothy's steady handwriting. Subject remained conscious for 10 minutes after removal of eyes, read 1. Vocalizations decreased gradually, movement ceased after pressure applied to throat. Then Harding found something worse. New drawings of humans. Children and adults were depicted in poses of agony, with speculative notes about anatomy and methods of causing suffering. One sketch clearly resembled little Mary Fletcher, another matched Henrik Larsson, and a third showed Jacob Mills at the bottom of the well, annotated with chilling notes about dehydration and exposure. Timothy had not merely been present when these deaths occurred, he had orchestrated them, step by step, recording the outcomes as if conducting experiments. Dr. Harding now understood. Sedalia County was harboring something far more dangerous than anyone dared to believe. But what could he do? In 1867, the idea of a murderous child was unthinkable. The law had no language for psychopathy. A court would dismiss Harding's claims as the delusions of a war-damaged doctor. If he exposed Timothy, the boy would be defended as a grieving orphan while the killings continued. So Harding made a decision. He would confront Timothy himself. The opportunity came quickly. One morning, Harding asked the boy to walk with him to check the livestock. Out of earshot from the family, the doctor calmly revealed what he had found in the cave. He expected fear, denial, or panic. Instead, Timothy listened with an almost serene expression, nodding occasionally as if verifying Harding's accuracy. When the doctor finished, Timothy finally spoke. "You're not going to tell anyone." It wasn't a question, it was a statement. "Why wouldn't I?" Harding asked. The boy's lips curved into the first true smile the doctor had ever seen. "Because no one would believe you, and because you're curious about what I'll do next." And to Harding's horror, the boy was right.